Isabella Moreau was the kind of woman people noticed without trying to. Not because she demanded attention, but because she carried it quietly, like a crown she never needed to polish. At 32, she was the youngest female millionaire in the city's financial elite, the founder of a tech empire built on precision, discipline, and vision. But to the public, her success was only half the story. The other half was her marriage. Isabella and Adrian Moreau were the definition of perfection. At least, that's what the world believed. They met when Isabella was still building her first startup and Adrian was a rising corporate strategist with charm sharp enough to disarm rooms full of investors. He pursued her patiently, persistently, never intimidated by her intelligence, never threatened by her ambition. When he proposed beneath the chandelier-lit ceiling of a Paris gala, cameras flashing and champagne flowing, the headlines wrote themselves. Power married grace. Their wedding was a spectacle of elegance. Ivory silk, crystal vows, smiles that lingered long enough to convince even skeptics that love could exist among the wealthy without rot. Adrian looked at Isabella like she was the only thing in the room that mattered, and she believed him. For a time, he made it easy to. In private, Adrian was attentive. He remembered how she liked her coffee. He kissed her forehead before leaving for meetings. He told her she didn't need to prove herself to anyone. When Isabella worked late into the night, he sat beside her, reviewing contracts, offering strategy, playing the role of a devoted partner. People envied her, not just for her wealth but for her marriage. What they didn't see were the cracks forming beneath the polish. Adrian began traveling more. Meetings ran longer. Dinners were postponed. When Isabella asked questions, he smiled and reassured her, said success demanded sacrifice, said everything he did was for them. And Isabella, who trusted deeply, accepted that explanation without suspicion. Because love, real love, doesn't look for betrayal where there has been devotion. The night of the accident arrived quietly. No arguments, no tension, just another evening in their glass-walled penthouse overlooking the city lights. Isabella had just closed a major acquisition, one that would cement her company's dominance for years to come. She was glowing, energized, alive with purpose. Adrian congratulated her with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. They left separately that night. Adrian claimed he had a late meeting across town. Isabella insisted on driving herself home later, needing space to think, to breathe, to plan the next phase of her empire. The rain started without warning. The highway blurred into streaks of white and red, headlights dissolving into chaos. Isabella barely had time to register the truck swerving into her lane before metal screamed against metal. Impact, darkness, silence. When Isabella Moreau woke again, 5 years would have vanished. Machines breathed for her. Tubes fed her. Time passed without permission. Doctors whispered words like irreversible, unlikely, vegetative. Adrian stood at her bedside during the early months, held her hand, signed papers, told reporters he would never give up hope. But hope, like loyalty, fades when it becomes inconvenient. As Isabella lay suspended between life and death, the world continued spinning, without her. And somewhere beyond the sterile walls of the hospital, her perfect life was already being dismantled, piece by piece. The doctors called it a miracle that Isabella Moreau was still alive. But miracles, like loyalty, are fragile things. 3 months into her coma, the hospital room stopped filling with flowers. 6 months in, the visits slowed. By the end of the first year, the only sound keeping her company was the mechanical rhythm of machines doing what humans no longer bothered to do. Wait, Adrian Moreau visited less often now. At first, he told himself it was survival. Grief took energy. Hope took more. Sitting beside a woman who did not speak, did not blink, did not move. It drained something essential from him. And Adrian had always been a man who preserved himself first. He signed documents, approved treatments, spoke to doctors with rehearsed concern. In public, he played the devoted husband perfectly. In private, his wedding ring began to feel like a burden. That was when Celeste stepped closer. Celeste Laurent had always existed in Isabella's shadow. Younger by 4 years. Softer spoken. Always watching. Where Isabella was commanding and decisive, Celeste was quiet, observant, and patient. She had grown up admiring her sister, but admiration, when left unattended, often mutates into envy. Celeste visited Isabella faithfully in the beginning. She brushed her sister's hair, moisturized her lips, whispered prayers she wasn't sure she believed in. But her eyes lingered longer on Adrian than they ever had before. And Adrian noticed. It started innocently. Conversations in hospital corridors. Shared exhaustion. Mutual grief that blurred lines. Adrian spoke about loneliness. Celeste listened. Celeste spoke about feeling invisible. Adrian reassured her. One night, long after visiting hours ended, they sat in Adrian's car outside the hospital, rain tapping softly against the windshield. "She wouldn't want you to be alone," Celeste said gently, and Adrian didn't correct her. That was the moment the affair truly began. Adrian had not been faithful even before the accident. Business trips had come with hotel bars and forgettable women whose names blurred together. But Celeste was different. She wasn't a distraction. She was convenient. She knew Isabella's routines, her preferences, her weaknesses, and slowly, Celeste slid into the spaces Isabella could no longer occupy. The penthouse felt less empty when Celeste stayed over. The silence felt less accusing. As months turned into years, the doctors became more certain. Recovery was unlikely. Brain activity minimal. Prognosis grim. Hope, officially, was removed from the conversation. That night, Adrian poured champagne. Not in celebration, at least not out loud. But when Celeste raised her glass and said, "To peace however it comes," Adrian did not stop her. They toasted quietly, and somewhere in a hospital bed miles away, Isabella lay unaware that her life was being rewritten without her consent. The affair didn't stay hidden for long. When Celeste moved into the penthouse under the excuse of support, no one questioned it. Society was forgiving when grief wore expensive suits. Adrian's friends applauded his resilience. Her absence made room for Celeste's presence. 3 years into the coma, Adrian did the unthinkable. He petitioned the court. Not to pull the plug. Publicly, that would have been unforgivable, but to declare Isabella legally incapacitated. It was paperwork. Strategic. Necessary, he told himself. The ruling passed quietly. Control of Isabella's empire shifted. Ownership diluted. And just like that, the woman who built everything lost everything while still breathing. Celeste watched it happen with a smile she never wore in public. 2 years later, Isabella was moved. From the private ICU suite Adrian once insisted on to a quieter wing. Fewer nurses. Less oversight. Cheaper. She wouldn't feel the difference, Adrian said when questioned. Celeste agreed. That same year they married. No grand ceremony. No headlines. Just signatures and champagne in the same penthouse Isabella once called home. Celeste wore ivory. Adrian wore relief. They told themselves it was practical. That life had to go on. That Isabella would have understood. But there were moments. Late at night. When Adrian woke suddenly, heart racing, convinced he heard Isabella's voice. Moments when Celeste stood before a mirror, touching the necklace that once belonged to her sister, wondering why victory tasted so bitter. They never visited Isabella together. They rarely visited her at all, because deep down they both feared the same thing. That one day, she might wake up. The nurse almost missed it. It was subtle, so small it could have been dismissed as a reflex, a glitch in the human body after 5 years of silence. But Isabella Moreau's fingers moved. Just slightly. The monitor spiked. And in that instant, 5 years of carefully constructed lies began to collapse. Dr. Hastings was halfway through his coffee when the call came. "Room 317, the nurse said, voice tight. She responded. The cup slipped from his hand. They rushed down the corridor, white coats blurring, hearts pounding. Not with excitement, but with disbelief. Isabella Moreau had been pronounced unlikely to ever regain consciousness. And yet, her eyelids fluttered. Once, twice, then slowly, painfully. She opened her eyes. Light burned. Sound stabbed. Her body felt like it didn't belong to her. Machines surrounded her like strangers. Tubes filled her mouth. Her head throbbed as if she had been underwater too long. She tried to speak. Nothing came out. But her eyes were awake. Fully. Aware. "She's conscious," Dr. Hastings whispered, as if afraid the words might undo themselves. Adrian was in the penthouse when his phone rang. Celeste was pouring wine. They were laughing, something rare, but real. When Adrian saw the hospital number, the color drained from his face. "No," he whispered. Celeste froze. "What is it?" She woke up. The glass shattered on the marble floor. For a moment, neither of them spoke. 5 years of comfort. 5 years of control. 5 years of rewriting history. Gone. "She's not supposed to wake up," Celeste said softly, more to herself than to him. Adrian grabbed his keys. They didn't argue. They didn't plan. Fear replaced every emotion. Isabella drifted in and out of consciousness for hours. Doctors spoke gently. Nurses reassured her. They explained the accident. The coma. The time. 5 years. The number made her chest tighten. She asked for Adrian. The room fell silent. "Your husband has been notified," the nurse said carefully. Husband. The word comforted her. Shouldn't have. When Adrian entered the room, Isabella's heart recognized him before her mind caught up. He looked older, sharper, colder. But it was him. Her lips trembled as she tried to smile. "Ad?" she whispered, voice cracked like broken glass. He stepped closer, forcing emotion onto his face like a mask he hadn't worn in years. "You're awake," he said. "Thank God." She searched his eyes. Something was wrong. He didn't hold her hand the way he used to. He didn't lean close. He stood like a visitor. Still, she was too weak to question it. She was alive. That was enough for now. Celeste entered last. Isabella didn't recognize her at first. The woman was elegant, confident, wearing Isabella's favorite perfume. Then recognition hit like ice water. "Celeste," Isabella whispered. Celeste smiled. The smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'm so glad you're back," she said. Something in her tone made Isabella's skin prickle. Over the next few days, Isabella learned to breathe again, to sit, to swallow, to exist. Everyone told her how lucky she was. But luck didn't feel like this. Adrian visited daily but briefly. Celeste stayed longer. Too long. She adjusted pillows, answered questions meant for Adrian, spoke as if she belonged there. Isabella noticed everything. The way nurses deferred to Celeste. The way Adrian avoided being alone with her. The way her wedding ring was missing. "Where's my ring?" Isabella asked one afternoon. Adrian hesitated. Celeste answered. "It was removed for medical reasons," she said smoothly. "You'll get it back." Isabella nodded, but unease settled deep in her chest. On the 5th day, Isabella asked for a mirror. When she saw her reflection, she barely recognized herself. Thin, pale, scarred. 5 years had been stolen from her face, from her life, from her marriage. She looked at Celeste standing behind her, and suddenly, she understood something she couldn't yet explain. Her sister wasn't visiting her. Her sister was replacing her. That night, Isabella overheard a whispered argument outside her room. "You promised she wouldn't wake up," Celeste hissed. "I didn't promise anything," Adrian snapped. "She's asking questions." "So what?" Adrian said. She doesn't remember everything yet. Celeste's voice dropped. What if she does? Silence. Then Adrian said the words that shattered the illusion completely. Then we handle it. Isabella closed her eyes. And for the first time since waking up, she pretended to still be asleep. They thought Isabella Moreau was fragile. A woman broken by time. A body weakened by 5 stolen years. A mind fogged by trauma. That assumption was their first mistake. Lying motionless in her hospital bed, Isabella listened. She listened to the rhythm of lies, to the carefully measured footsteps outside her room, to the soft voices that changed tone when they thought she was asleep. She learned quickly that survival didn't begin with confrontation. It began with silence. Isabella smiled when Adrian entered the room. It was small, careful, convincing. "How are you feeling today?" he asked, forcing concern into his voice. "Better," she whispered, still confused. "Good." Confusion made people underestimate you. He relaxed visibly. Doctors said memory loss was normal after prolonged comas. Isabella leaned into that narrative like a shield. She asked harmless questions, repeated herself, pretended not to notice inconsistencies. She let them believe she was still waking up, still vulnerable, still easy to manipulate. Celeste played the role of caretaker perfectly. She brought flowers, adjusted pillows, spoke gently, but Isabella noticed the control beneath the kindness. Celeste answered questions before Adrian could, corrected nurses, signed documents, documents with Isabella's name on them. That night, when Celeste left the room, Isabella whispered to the nurse, "Why does my sister sign everything?" The nurse hesitated. "Mrs. Maddox, she's your legal proxy." Isabella's heart skipped. Legal, proxy, words with teeth. Later, Isabella requested her phone. They said it wasn't ready yet. Too early, too overwhelming. She nodded obediently, but fear sharpened her mind. 5 years. What had they taken? During physical therapy, Isabella overheard 2 nurses whispering. "She's stronger than they expected." "Yeah. But did you hear? The sister married the husband." Isabella froze mid-step. The room tilted. "Married?" she asked softly. The nurses went silent. "Oh, I mean," Isabella laughed weakly. "You must be mistaken." They exchanged glances. Silence confirmed everything. That night, Isabella cried without sound. Her body shook, but her mind hardened. They didn't just betray her, they replaced her. But grief was a luxury she could not afford. Not yet. The next morning, Isabella asked Adrian directly, "When I was asleep, did you move on?" He hesitated too long. Celeste stepped in. "It was complicated," she said gently. "You were gone, gone." As if Isabella had chosen the coma. Adrian looked away. "We did what we thought was best," he said. Isabella nodded slowly. "I understand." She didn't, but they believed she did. That afternoon, Isabella asked to review her medical history. Dr. Hastings brought the file. What she saw chilled her. Delayed tests, changed medications, notes altered. Someone had rewritten her survival. She didn't say a word. She memorized everything. When Adrian left that evening, Isabella whispered, "I forgive you." He stiffened. Guilt flashed across his face. She watched it bloom, and smiled, because guilt was leverage. Late that night, Isabella wheeled herself to the window. The city glowed beneath her. The same city she once ruled beside Adrian. 5 years ago, she had been powerful. Now, she was invisible, and invisibility was dangerous. Celeste stood in the hallway, speaking on the phone. "She remembers less than we feared," she said. "She's not the same woman." Isabella closed her eyes. No, she wasn't. She was worse. Back in her bed, Isabella stared at the ceiling. They thought they'd buried her. They didn't realize they'd planted her. And soon, She would grow back stronger. The first sign that everything was about to collapse came quietly. A phone call. One nurse entered Isabella's room that morning with a look she couldn't hide. "Mrs. Moreau," she said gently. "You have visitors." Visitors. Plural. Isabella knew before she saw them. 3 men walked into the hospital room like gravity had shifted. Tall, composed, dangerously calm. Julian Moreau, Sebastian Moreau, Lucien Moreau, her brothers. Men who ruled boardrooms, courts, and governments without ever raising their voices. Men who had stayed away on purpose, until Isabella was strong enough to stand on her own. Isabella's breath hitched. Not in fear, in relief. Julian reached her first, kneeling beside the bed. "You took too long to wake up," he said softly. Tears spilled freely down Isabella's face. "I needed to be sure," she whispered, "that I wasn't crazy." Sebastian's jaw tightened. "You were never crazy," he said. "You were betrayed." Adrian arrived minutes later. The moment he saw the brothers, his face drained of color. Celeste followed behind him, smile already cracking. "Who are?" Julian stood slowly. "We're family," he said. "The kind you don't replace." Silence swallowed the room. Lucien placed a tablet on the bedside table. Security footage. Financial transfers. Medical reports. 5 years of lies. "Isabella's accident," Lucien said calmly, "was no accident." Celeste's breath caught. Sebastian continued. "Delayed treatment. Altered prescriptions. Forged consent forms." Julian finished. "You didn't celebrate her survival. You prepared for her death." Adrian collapsed into a chair. I didn't know it went that far," he stammered. Isabella looked at him. For the first time in 5 years, clearly. "You knew enough," she said. "That hurt him more than anger ever could." Celeste broke. "You were supposed to stay asleep," she screamed. Everything was finally ours. The room froze. Security stepped in. Handcuffs followed. 2 weeks later, the world watched. Headlines exploded. Billionaire heiress betrayed by husband and sister. 5-year coma concealed a crime. Adrian resigned. Celeste was arrested. Trials were scheduled. The empire Isabella built was returned to her hands, intact. On her final day in the hospital, Adrian asked to see her. She agreed. He stood at the doorway, smaller than she remembered. "I loved you," he said. Isabella met his eyes. "No," she replied. "You loved what I gave you." She walked past him. Months later, Isabella stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Stronger, sharper, whole. Julian joined her. "Ready to live again?" he asked. Isabella smiled. "I never stopped." Below them, the city moved. This time, with her watching.